This is the story of a 20-year-old saga. Silver Oaks International Schools was born in 2002 with a focus on character before competence. Over the last 2 decades, the school has been evolving from strength to strength. Trust from parents, commitment from teachers, energy from students has made Silver Oaks International Schools an ecosystem for inspired learning, consistency, congruence, and commitment to create the learning environment in the schools. The mission of Silver Oaks International Schools is to integrate into teaching and learning the goals for conservation and social justice, to develop civic virtues and emotional skills that can empower our icons to be the icons of personal and social change who will play the leading roles in the transition to a sustainable future. Choosing the right school is one of the most important decisions that you as a parent can take in your child's life. From the first step into school, into graduating with confidence and competence of an intellectually stimulating career, Silver Oaks International Schools can make all the difference. Welcome to Brainfeed EdTalks, brought to you by Tutoroot Technologies. Education is a serious business, literally. What used to be at one time plain vanilla education with state board examinations, later CBSE, has now metamorphosized into International Baccalaureate, or IB as it's known, to ICSE and IGCSE, and a range of other options. But how do schools ensure uniformity when they have multiple such different courses within the same educational institutions? How do they ensure quality of teaching to students across various faculties? To talk to this and more, we have with us Ms Seeta Murthy, Director Education, Silver Oak International Schools across Hyderabad, Bengaluru and Vishakhapatnam. To talk specifically, in fact, I would like to ask Ms Seeta Murthy to start with, how did you see the change happening over the last 2 decades, for example, in the education sector? And as I had spoken of earlier, in terms of just coming from plain vanilla education now into a plethora of options, how do you see these changes happening?
Thank you for having me, Sureshji, and it's a pleasure sharing my perspectives on the topic that you have put forth on the table. What are the changes that I see? I've been in this field of education for about 3 decades plus now. I see the changes more than in the system than the way people perceive education now. When I started my career way back in 1987, I looked at education as a kind of sacrosanct experience for generations of children who go to school. Gradually, I've seen parents becoming very, very interfering and also very, very responsible in both ways. There's plus and minus there. Very responsive, responsible. And then I have seen the students in the last 2 decades, to answer your question directly, I've seen the students changing. There is this evidence, which is a research-based evidence which says that amygdala, the organ in the brain, is growing in size and the learning capacities of children are expanding in the last 2 decades. I see a lot of potential in terms of learning ability in children. I see a lot of advantage in terms of multiple boards competing with each other to improve the standards of education. And I see that there is a large canvas out there for this generation to explore what education can mean to them. If you think I answered your question.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because when you look at when I studied, for example, way back in the late 70s, we were talking of pure state board at that point in time. CBSE, of course, was there, but it modified, it changed, it has now evolved into a different kind of mechanism to teach. But as a parent, when you look at a parent as such, how do you look at a parent specifically when they are talking about, say, something like IGCSE? Now, many parents are aware why they should take an IGCSE course and not go for a CBSE, or maybe why go for an IB and not for something else. How do you explain to a parent who walks in and says, what's best for my child? What kind of options, what kind of things do you look at when you advise them?
Yeah. So, India is a country with diversity. Right now, 28 states, 8 union territories. And when we drafted the constitution after the independence, we felt that education should be on both union list and the state list, on the concurrent list. Because of the varying learning levels in each state depending on their development, the boards of education had to match the standards of learners at that point of time. And that undulated landscape of education standards in each state continued. Okay. Gradually, we started having the Cambridge. Gradually, we started having the IB. Today in India, we have 28 states, 28 state boards. We have the national board, the CBSE and the ICSE. We have the international boards, the IB and the IGCSE, the Cambridge program. All boards say one thing: the best way of teaching and learning for children. It depends on the schools, how they interpret the standards defined by each board, how they roll it out to the clientele, to the kind of students who come to them, how they make it meaningful for each student. So I always say one thing, irrespective of the board you follow, the schools have the larger responsibility of contextualizing learning for every student. You know, I also, because we are into IB schools, I must say, we have even experimented conceptual transdisciplinary learning that is recommended by IB in rural schools too. So for me, it's not the boards, but it's the schools that can define the standards of learning.
To be continued.